It's astonishing how swiftly a magical Disney fantasy can spiral into a full-blown public catastrophe. Just 12 months ago, Rachel Zegler was being heralded as the future face of Disney royalty. The kind of young woman who graces red carpets, waves like a storybook princess, and serenades imaginary birds with charm. But somewhere between the casting reveal and the movie's long-delayed premiere, that idyllic dream disintegrated completely. This wasn't merely a stroke of bad fortune or a handful of negative reviews. No, it felt far more profound, almost as if the entire universe had collectively turned its back on a girl who, perhaps, spoke too boldly at a time when silence might have served her better. Rachel's downfall wasn't triggered by a poor acting performance or a cinematic misfire. It all began with what she chose to say. Across several high-profile interviews, she openly criticized the very foundation on which Disney had built its identity, fairytales. She referred to the original Snow White as outdated. She openly questioned why the princess needed to be rescued by a man. She even dismissed the prince as a borderline stalker. Now, for a modern crowd that often celebrates reboots with fresh perspectives, her words might have resonated. But this wasn't just any remake. This was the classic. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was the cornerstone of the Disney empire, the movie that started it all. So when Rachel tried to reimagine it through a modern lens, longtime fans didn't applaud. They rebelled. Viewers who had cherished the 1937 classic since childhood weren't interested in watching their nostalgia get deconstructed. They came for wonder, not a feminist TED Talk. And when Rachel offered the latter, the backlash was immediate. Meanwhile, Disney found itself caught in an impossible situation, wedged between a PR disaster and a poisoned apple. They had already invested a jaw-dropping sum into the production, reportedly around $350 million. That's the kind of money normally reserved for Marvel blockbusters. Yet instead of headlines celebrating revolutionary visuals or a hit soundtrack, the media zeroed in on Rachel's polarizing interviews and the increasing speculation that she wasn't even proud of the project she was headlining. Then came the infamous Seguenza event. In a desperate attempt to salvage the situation, Disney organized a promotional performance at the Alcazar of Seguenza, a breathtaking Spanish castle that served as inspiration for the original Snow White's home. On paper, it should have been a fairy tale moment. A storybook setting, castle backdrop, Rachel in a whimsical gown performing Waiting on a Wish. All the right elements were there. But instead of an enchanted premiere buzzing with celebrities and devoted fans, it felt like a staged gathering of social media influencers, journalists, and a few children from local schools. The ambience leaned more toward a middle school recital than a magical Disney showcase. Making matters worse, Gal Gadot, Rachel's co-star and the film's villainous queen, was entirely absent. She didn't show up. It was just Rachel and director Mark Webb awkwardly posing for photographs, trying to present an image of normalcy. But it was written all over Rachel's face something wasn't right. And soon after that appearance, she vanished from the public eye. No major press events, no new interviews. When the movie finally hit theaters, Rachel was completely missing from the conversation. She made only one low-key public appearance casually spotted strolling through New York City with no makeup, hair tossed into a messy bun, wearing oversized denim over a warm brown hoodie. She didn't resemble a Disney lead anymore. Her eyes were puffy, her expression blank. She looked like someone who already knew the fairy tale had crashed and burned before audiences even saw the ending. Critics weren't gentle either. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a harsh 40% rating. Over on IMDb, it sank even further, earning a dismal 1.6 out of 10 numbers you might expect from a buggy. Low-budget indie project. Not a Disney epic with a colossal financial investment. And as the figures rolled in, the failure at the box office became painfully clear. Despite pouring over $350 million into it, Disney only managed to recoup about $184 million globally. This wasn't a minor letdown. It was a cinematic disaster. And right at the center of this unraveling stood Rachel Zegler, the actress who never got her castle. Rachel didn't just lose a starring role. She lost control of the narrative. And once that slipped from her grasp, the internet did what it always does, picked her apart one meme at a time. From Twitter threads to TikTok skits to YouTube takedowns, everyone had a comment, and almost none of it was supportive. The outrage wasn't primarily about her acting or singing ability. It centered around her attitude, or at least the version of it perceived online. People got the sense that Rachel wasn't grateful for the role of Snow White, that rather than honoring the legacy, she looked down on it. And audiences caught on. Every dismissive smirk during an interview, every so-called woke remark challenging classic princess norms, it all accumulated. Rachel had developed a reputation for blunt honesty. She didn't deliver polished, rehearsed PR lines like many of her peers. She was unfiltered, talking candidly about politics, gender norms, and power structures, all the topics Disney typically steers far away from. In a different kind of project, that raw openness might have been celebrated. But for Snow White, a franchise steeped in nostalgia and childhood wonder, it became a death sentence. And then came the casting controversy. From the moment Disney revealed Rachel as the new Snow White, fans were divided. Some praised the move toward diversity, applauding the casting of a Colombian-American actress in a traditionally white role, but others clung to the original fairy tale. Description: skin as white as snow, straight from the Brothers Grimm. It wasn't always blatant racism. It was complex, emotional. People felt their childhood image of Snow White was being rewritten, and Rachel didn't stay quiet. In a now-deleted post, she defiantly said, "Yes, I am Snow White. No, I am not. Bleaching my skin for the role." It was bold. Perhaps too bold for a fan base already teetering on outrage. The criticism intensified. She was labeled arrogant, rude, unappreciative. Trolls stormed her comment sections. Online personalities broke down her interviews frame by frame. Her tone, her facial expressions, even her fashion choices, nothing escaped the microscope. Meanwhile, Gal Gadot, the seasoned, elegant, media-savvy actress, seemed distant. When Rachel desperately needed someone in her corner for damage control, Gal was missing in action. Sure, they appeared together at the Oscars and premiere events, smiling for the cameras, but fans weren't convinced. The body language told a different story. Rumors swirled about off-screen tension, possibly rooted in clashing political ideologies. That discord reached a boiling point when the official trailer debuted. The visuals and music took a backseat as viewers argued over the political implications. Rachel had shared outspoken political posts following the 2024 election. Many viewed them as combative. One particular message ignited widespread backlash. She deleted it and issued a public apology, but the damage was irreversible. At that point, the story wasn't even about the movie anymore. It was about Rachel, her persona, her beliefs, her public missteps. Disney, ever the PR veteran, attempted a quiet pivot. They scrapped the usual glitzy premiere and opted for a muted event at the El Capitan Theater. No flashing lights, no screaming crowds, just a small press gathering and a daytime screening. It felt more like an obligation than a celebration. Rachel was absent. She'd gone completely dark. No statements, no tweets, no staged street photos. It was as if she had retreated into her own fading fairy tale, hoping to wait out the storm. But online, the storm kept intensifying. Then came the moment that defined it all. Rachel Zegler, the star of Disney's most expensive film of the year, was spotted quietly sitting in the back of a nearly empty theater watching her own movie. No entourage, no media circus, just her and a few close friends in the dark. That image stuck with people. It felt like the final page in what was supposed to be a triumphant storybook ending, now reduced to a quiet, lonely epilogue. This wasn't how Disney premieres were supposed to unfold. No one imagined the lead actress of a $350 million blockbuster would be hiding from cameras and watching the box office failure unfold in real time. It was brutal. And for someone who once dazzled audiences with confidence and charisma, the public implosion had to be devastating. Theaters echoed the failure. Empty seats, sparse screenings. Even budget ticket nights failed to bring in crowds. The excitement had vanished. People weren't just uninterested, they were avoiding it altogether. The phrase "ultimate woke" flop started circulating in YouTube thumbnails and Reddit discussions, and Rachel's name was permanently attached. But perhaps the most tragic aspect, it wasn't all her doing. Yes, she made some poorly timed comments. Yes, she challenged beloved traditions. But the film's failure went beyond interviews and Twitter. The movie itself lacked emotional depth. Despite the enormous budget, the visuals felt artificial. the story was incoherent, and the spirit of the original tale had been stripped away in favor of a clumsy modern retelling. Audiences didn't want a lecture disguised as a fairy tale. They wanted heart. They wanted to be swept away. But what they got instead was robotic dialogue, lifeless characters, and a nagging sense that even the cast didn't believe in what they were selling. And when your leading lady is more preoccupied with surviving internet backlash than championing the film, the cracks in the Disney machine become impossible to ignore. The company tried to spin its scripted interviews, curated Instagram posts, vague apologies, but it was too late. The online world had already decided. Rachel Zegler had become the poster child for everything they believed was wrong with modern Hollywood. Even some of her supporters began to distance themselves, not out of hatred, but because she seemed burned out, like she had nothing left to give. The radiant girl who once shined in West Side Story now appeared guarded, tired, and far older than her years. Behind the scenes, whispers grew louder. Rachel was quietly being removed from future Disney plans. Lucrative brand deals dried up. Some insiders said she was too controversial. Others claimed she simply needed to rest. Whatever the reason, the once wide-open doors were now gently closing. Still, there was something heartbreakingly human about how it all fell apart. Watching someone go from Disney's crown jewel to an industry punchline in less than 12 months wasn't just shocking. It was profoundly sad. Because beyond the memes, the hot takes, and the social media storms, there's still a young actress who once dreamed of being a princess. And maybe that's the hardest part. Not that she stumbled, but that when the story collapsed, nobody stuck around to see if she was okay. The stage went dark. The fairy tale ended. And Rachel Zegler was left standing alone. In silence, no cheers, no curtain call.